fresh off of a historic Scottsdale auction.
Sold.
Barrett-Jackson now comes to Palm Beach, and it's better than ever. Some of the most sought-after vehicles in the world are on hand. The rarest of supercars, the pinnacle of resto mods, timeless classics, muscle machines for everyone, killer collections. And it wouldn't be Florida without an incredible selection of convertibles. So join us to witness the drama, the excitement, the sheer spectacle that is Barrett-Jackson. It all starts right now on FYI.
There are 4 seasons in South Florida: Snowbird, preseason baseball, spring break, and the annual visit from the world's greatest collector car auctions. This is the greatest of those 4. Welcome to the 2024 Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction from Palm Beach. Hi everybody, I'm Bob Varsha inside the Agriplex, one of nearly 24 massive structures housing the hundreds of beautiful classic and collector cars that will cross the world-famous Barrett-Jackson block this weekend. 20 hours of coverage is coming your way here on FYI and the History Channel, so plan to be with us all weekend. Now, if you're a regular Barrett-Jackson viewer, you know the Palm Beaches differ a little bit from the mothership in January in Scottsdale, Arizona. We expect more classic boulevard cruisers, more convertibles, more supercars, more of everything. You get the idea. Now let's meet the next member of our broadcast team, Rick DeBrule.
Well, thanks a lot, Bob. You know, there is no shortage of celebrity sightings when you're in Palm Beach, and some of those are on the boulevard, but we have plenty of them here at the South Florida Fairgrounds. Only these celebrities, well, they have 4 wheels. I mean, we have 14 Ferraris, we have 4 Lamborghinis, and we have 5, count them 5, Ford GTs, some of the first generation of the continuation cars, as well as the latest generation. And that doesn't even count the Aston Martins or the Maseratis, some of the other stuff. But you know, each car is unique and different and has its own special story, like this one right here, a Ford GT from 2022. Now, this particular one is a Heritage Edition. It's done to recreate the racing colors of Alan Mann Racing. Alan Mann was contracted by Ford to build a special group of lightweight Ford GT40s. And these were the colors that they ran at Sebring that year and at the Le Mans test days. Now, once again, they didn't win the race, but it's one of the continuation cars. It's very cool. And this particular one is going to sell on Saturday, part of Super Saturday here at Barrett-Jackson. Trust me, it's going to bring big, big money. Now it's time to check in with the next member of our broadcast team, the host of Hoovie's Garage. Here's Tyler Hoover.
Well, Rick, as you know, a recent phenomenon at Barrett-Jackson is Resto Mods and Customs bringing more money than finally restored cars to original. And Corvettes, that is especially the case. You can see a beautiful row here of cars that look stock almost, but they have modern performance, modern driving experience, and some incredible custom touches. Like this 1963 split window Corvette, you can see that supercharged LS9 under the hood from a modern ZR1 Corvette. But the star of the show is definitely the Jeff Hayes Corvette. This one started as a 1966 convertible, but you can see there is nothing 1966 inside of here. And under the hood, an LS3 V8 engine dressed up to look like a classic Corvette, but beautifully done. But it's not just Corvettes that are customized and rocking the block. April Rose has more with some off-roaders.
Thanks, Tyler. Well, I have the best job here at Barrett-Jackson. I get to walk around all these beautiful cars and show you what's coming up throughout the week, like this absolutely stunning 1984 Land Cruiser Troopy. I love this satin finish. It's stunning. Of course, you got a winch on the front. You're not going to get stuck anywhere with this. Now, come on, we got more. First generation Bronco, of course, with that matte finish. Now, when it comes to customization, anything goes, and these Resto Mods are just absolutely spectacular at Barrett-Jackson. This one's uncut to preserve that first generation style. Oh, you're gonna love this. You gotta see this K5 Blazer. Really, really neat. Take a look inside. Love this houndstooth seats, leather-wrapped wheel, really beautiful gauges with a touch of blue right there. Now that blue touch continues with the trim right here. I love just taking a look at all the details of all the customizations on these off-road trucks. It is so neat. Now, of course, if you've ever seen Barrett-Jackson before, you know I'm obsessed with Broncos. So take a look at this one, this first generation, 1971. It's got a Gen 3 Coyote 5.0 10-speed automatic. Now, she is lifted 2.5-inch suspension lift, 3-inch body lift, and check it inside. It is just pristine. Oyster interior with blue stitching, full body colored roll bar, all new digital gauges, and just a really sweet, simple bikini top. I mean, this is a taste of what you're going to see here all week long at Barrett-Jackson.
Well, thank you very much. Now you've met our entire lineup. It's time to rock the block, and we'll do that in just a moment. A reminder, 20 hours of coverage here on FYI today from noon to 6 p.m. Eastern. Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. also on FYI. And then on Saturday, Super Saturday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. live on the History Channel. Plan to spend the whole weekend with us because we have plenty to show you. Dream rides coming up. All of them ready to find a new home. We'll be back in just a moment to South Florida. Welcome back inside the auction hall at the South Florida Fairgrounds in the Palm Beaches of Florida for the 2024 Barrett-Jackson Palm Beach Collector Car Auction. And let's go right to the man to make the wheels go round, standing by with Rick DeBrule.
Well, that's right, Bob. I'm with Craig Jackson, company chairman and CEO, and of course Steve Davis, the president. And you know, there's some great cars here. And I have to ask, is this the best Palm Beach lineup you've ever had? I mean, it's an amazing collection.
I think, you know, probably the best overall is when we had the big Staluppi collection, because we had to add a day. But for a 3-day auction, having 3 Ford GTs, 11 cars coming out of this John Staluppi collection, it is one of the best consignment auctions we've ever had for a 3-day auction.
Yeah, I mean, we've got north of 600 cars. And Steve, let's talk about today, because I mean, we've got some great cars coming up on Saturday. But you know, this is entry-level day. There's a lot of fun stuff crossing the block.
This is fun day at Barrett-Jackson, Rick. Yep. We're just talking something for everybody. You talk about eclectic, that's Thursday all the way. We have everything from late model type cars that you see maybe in a car lot once in a while with really, really low miles. We have classics, customs, hot rods, same thing we have during the week, but only they're a little quirky and a little more affordable. So it gets you can scratch that itch, get into the collector car hobby without spending $1 million, but still having $1 million worth of fun.
Well, we used to talk about the Palm Beachy Keen cars, but I mean, we've got once again a great collection of supercars and special stuff, even some old classics that are going to be crossing the block.
Absolutely, that Pierce Arrow is spectacular in there. You've got the Cord from John Staluppi's Cars of Dreams. Very eclectic. He's got the Amphicar in there and the Thing and the Chevy Pace car. So there's a lot of really cool cars, and for the first time ever, a Leopard tank selling at no reserve at Barrett-Jackson.
Jimmy Buffett's Nash. I mean, that's diversity, right?
From one extreme to the other. All right, guys, we're looking forward to it. I think it's time for us to head up and start seeing some of these cars sell. Back to you, Bob.
All right, thanks very much, Rick.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it, guys.
The Staluppi they mentioned is John Staluppi, a local super successful car dealer and yacht builder who has a real soft spot in his heart for collector cars and a wonderful collection. When was the last time he saw one of these? A 2008 Chrysler Crossfire. Amazing. And it sells for $9,000, underscoring what Steve Davis said about affordability here on opening day, Thursday at Barrett-Jackson. Here's lot 12, a 1984 Cadillac Sedan DeVille.
Well, you can see there's a lot of these well-preserved Cadillacs and sort of retirement-era cars that cross the block here at Barrett-Jackson. This one, very low mileage, and the color is a great option. Triple yellow, yellow paint, yellow vinyl top, and yellow interior.
Yeah, big Sedan DeVille. I mean, it's not the Seville that came out during the same era. Remember the Seville with the bustle back, that kind of knobby back? But you know, this, if you were somebody with some money money. You could have, you know, 4 big seats. And boy, you look at this, while it's not a limousine, there is a massive amount of legroom in the back of this thing. So at this point, Cadillacs were still really big, built on big wheelbases. And boy, very, very heavy creatures.
And it had a 4.1 V8 under the hood to get this giant thing moving along. A little underpowered, definitely, for this era. Quite wheezy in the malaise era of these cars, but they definitely looked the part.
And the car sells for $6,500. I almost couldn't get that number out of my mouth. Now let's journey out to the Meguiar's staging lanes and visit with April Rose.
Hey, Bob, I'm with this really cool 1966 Fiat 500F. Now, I grew up in Chicago. There's not a lot of parking, but you don't have to worry about it with this. You could park it anywhere, I mean, even in your living room. And what I love about it is this soft cloth top sunroof. So maybe if you're too tall like me, your head will pop up if you want to keep it open. Now, take a peek inside low back bucket seats with a two-tone color. You got some toggle switches up there. This is actually an ashtray in the center. But look at the speedometer, 120 kilometers per hour, which is about 60, 70 miles per hour. I don't know if it'll ever reach that. Maybe downhill being chased by a bear. Now, all that power comes from the back. Rear-mounted 499cc engine with a single downshaft carburetor, 4-speed manual, and this puppy, she was just imported from Italy in 2021. And being from Europe, you know, it's a bit more sophisticated than us Americans. If you need some extra class in your life, this is your ride.
No question about it, April. Cute as a button and almost a half-liter of displacement. Here is lot 15 in a 1982 Chrysler Cordoba. Did it sell? $42.50. You know, the first time I came to a Barrett-Jackson auction here in Palm Beach, gosh, decades ago, a beautiful car, much like the one I owned, sold for like $11,000. And I thought, what am I doing talking into a microphone here? I should be out there bidding on these cars. There's some wonderful buys, and you don't have to be a gazillionaire to grab a great car. We'll move on. Here's an 06 Lincoln Town Car Signature Series. We're at $6,000 bid.
Yeah, there was no fine Corinthian leather in that Cordoba, so that might have held it back a little bit. But this town car here certainly has leather. This was the last generation of the Lincoln Town Car before it was retired in 2011. And you can see it's the last perimeter frame on body car, old school sedan. A lot of these used as limousines, very few preserved like this in this condition. This one also the mid-trim, the Signature Series.
Yeah, how many people went to the prom in a stretch version of these things? You know, this particular car was actually 3 inches shorter than the previous generation. Got about 239 horsepower, not a whole lot.
And $7,500 takes it. Well bought, young man. But that's the story of Thursday, day 1 of 3 for us here at Barrett-Jackson Palm Beach. There's a beautiful view downtown, one of the prettiest parts of the United States. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Barrett-Jackson Palm Beach, rolling off the block, but the bidding continues on lot 24, a 2012 Hyundai Genesis R-Spec.
Yeah, this was the last year for this style. Also the last year when this engine had 304 horsepower. The next year it would get bumped up to 348. You had your choice of a 3.8 liter or a turbo 2-liter engine. I used to have one of these, really fun car to drive.
I do really like these. A lot of people are confused now because Genesis became its own brand, sort of like Imperial going back and forth on being its own brand or a part of Chrysler. But I think Genesis is here to say has its own standalone luxury brand, and they're still building some fantastic sports cars at a great value. And this was sort of the start of it.
Yeah, not a luxury car, just a fun sports car. Has a fun aftermarket world around it.
And it is sold for $10,000, plus buyer's premium and all the appropriate taxes. Congratulations to the new owner. It's an unusual car. Here comes lot 25, a 2012 Cadillac SRX.
This is a crossover mid-size SUV for Cadillac, and actually when I started as a 19-year-old salesman at a Cadillac dealership, these had just come out. So I had to learn how to sell SRXs, some cool tricks they had when they first came out, the big panoramic roofs. They sold really well, especially because of the Cadillac Escalade, that big 6.2-liter V8, got terrible gas mileage. And around that time, 2007, 2008, people were looking for better fuel economy. Prices were through the roof for gas.
So let me get this straight. I was going to buy my Cadillac from a 19-year-old kid.
Yes, a lot of people, I wanted to work at the BMW side of things, but they said I looked too young. I showed up in a Brooks Brothers suit that my grandmother bought for me, and I think that got me in because it made me look a little bit older.
Probably 2 sizes too big, exactly. This was the year I think they bumped up to a 3.6-liter engine from the 3.0-liter engine they had before. Base price for this was around $36,000. You probably know that, but you could work your way up in almost a $50,000 with one of these by you were done. And I'm sure most of them sold in the high 40s.
And around this time, Cadillac was sort of experimenting with fins coming back a little bit, at least in the taillights. You can see, you go up here, and they're sort of trying to do a bit of a fin treatment. On the Escalades, it went all the way up the rear pillar and on the top.
And I love the way the fact that Cadillac over the years has really leaned into the whole angular design concept. Not trying to be rounded like a lot of other cars were at that point in time. They've owned the angles.
Sold at $10,000, and you see that one of the Barrett-Jackson staff members was on the internet. One of the many ways you can bid at any Barrett-Jackson: in person, by proxy, over the phone, and via the internet. $10,000 for the SRX. Now here comes a car April showed us out in the staging lanes. Cute as a button, a 66 Fiat 500F.
Let's call them what they're officially known as in Italy, the Cinquecento, which of course stands for 500. They built these from 1957 all the way up through 1975, and boy, this was truly the people's car in Italy. I mean, if you owned a car, if you had a car at some point in time in Italy, this was definitely one of the ones you were going to have. Little teeny thing, but boy, it goes everywhere. And I love the fact that the wheels are so far on either edge, so it's really got great stability.
Yes, the last time that I was in Italy, I met up with a fan who had one of these, and he let me drive it around Rome. And the power to weight ratio is pretty good to where it can still keep up with modern traffic. But you see this top here, this retractable sunroof, it was sort of essential for me to be able to fit. I sort of stuck out like Big Bird with my 6'3" frame and the spikes, so I looked kind of ridiculous.
One time we were in Italy, and our car was parked in front of our hotel, and we had a Cinquecento and another car that parked right next to us within inches. We couldn't pull out of our parking space. So we got out, we lifted up the back of the Cinquecento with the bumper, we put it onto the curb, and then we just drove away.
I saw that same thing happen in Rome just last year, Rick. 4 guys got disgruntled about where this little car was parked, so they just picked it up, put it up on the sidewalk, and took the parking space. And in a big one for the little cars, $15,000 at the Hammer makes it the top seller of the sale thus far. Well done. Now, if you'd like to test your collector car knowledge and maybe snag a great prize in the process, you're going to want to play Fantasy Bid, brought to you by Dodge. Go to promo.barrettjacksonfantasybid.com to register and play. You'll try to predict the winning bid of select auction vehicles that'll cross the block this Saturday, April 20th. The winner at the end of all the 2024 Barrett-Jackson auctions will receive the grand prize, a 2024 Dodge Hornet. And if you're really on your game this week and can predict the exact final bid of all 12 Fantasy Bid vehicles, you could win $100,000. It's the perfect 12 jackpot, so make sure you register to play. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 to play. Visit promo.barrettjacksonfantasybid.com for all the official rules. Now on the block, here comes lot 27, a 1989 Jeep Wrangler Custom.
Well, and what's really custom about it is what's under the hood. It's got a 383 stroker motor that they have installed, and of course they've got plenty of off-road accessories.